Hello and welcome to Hammer Down Woodworking. This is Tracy Maxfield, and today we're going to start a pretty good sized project, not real big, but pretty good sized project. We're going to build an outfeed slash assembly table for my table saws. Been needing that for a while, time to get on. The material I'll be using is 2x4s and 5/8 inch thick construction grade plywood. Okay, the very first thing that I do is take my 2x4 stock that I'm going to make my legs out of over to the miter saw and cut those down to length. Then I'll mark one side, one face and one edge and run that across the joiner, getting one flat surface and one edge flat, preparing the wood for the glue up. Now this is shop furniture, so it really doesn't matter exactly how well it looks, but I want the surfaces flat enough that I get a good glue up when I glue these pieces together. After that, I go over to the thickness planer and I'll send them through with the jointed side down and bring them to their final dimension as far as thickness is concerned. And then I'll go over to the table saw and send those through with the jointed edge against the fence, and I'll cut those 2x4s down to their final thickness, which is 2 3/4. And when I put both boards together, put two 2x4s together to make one leg, it'll be 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. One of the things that I like to do to prepare for my cleanup prior to making the mess is use packing tape, and I'll run that down across the bar of my clamps, and I don't smash it down on the sides so that it's completely covering the bar and hard to get the tape off. If you'll just let it run it up on the clamp part and just let it tack to the bar across the top and flare out on the sides, it will divert that glue off of your bar and make your cleanup a whole lot easier. And then put you some, whether it's plastic or construction paper like this right here, contractor's paper, or even just some cardboard, whatever. If you take that few extra minutes to prepare for cleanup, your cleanup will be a lot easier. And now, before I glue these boards together, I'm going to inspect which side I want to turn toward the inside and pairing that board with another. Now that their board has glue on it, the way I do mine is I'll start cinching it up just a little bit in the center, and then every pair is going to be a leg, every two. And I make sure that just the ends of that is flat with its mate. And when that is, then you can start bringing it the other ones. Start tightening it all down. And as you can see on top of that, I have plenty of squeeze out. And also, I don't know if you can see that in under there or not, but there's plenty of squeeze out and under that. And it's nice knowing that none of that is getting on my clamps and none of that is getting on my table. And then I will send those through my planer just to take the glue line off the top of it. I'm not really trimming any wood, just the glue line. Okay, I know I've cut my rails for this table frame at the rails are 3 inches wide, so I'm going to mark 3 inches down on two sides of this, and this will make sense in a few. And I know you can't see that on camera, but I'm going to darken it up. And I've set my saw blade height to 1/2 inch. I'm going to make a 1/2 inch notch in two sides of this leg, and then another 1/2 inch notch, 1/2 inch by 3 inch on the lower section of the leg for a shelf. It's going to go on the platform on the bottom to set stuff such as air compressor and things that I'll need when I'm doing assembly. Now that I have those marked, and I've turned this one sideways so you can see, but it'll actually sit this way. Of course, those will be lined up straight. All four corners are marked on two sides, 3 inches deep, or 1/2 inch deep and 3 inches wide. It's going to be a notch around all four outside corners, and the center post is only going to have one notch in it. And here's that lower notch, and what I done was I set my fence up for the top of the curve, and then I made a spacer to go in between, line that up, and clamp my workpiece to my miter gauge, and then pull that spacer out and make my lower cut, and then all I had to do was just kind of hog the middle out of it. And here I am assembling the bottom section of the, or one long section of the bottom frame, the table stand. Each joint is fastened together with glue and screws. I used Type Bond 3 and also used 3-inch deck screws. I put two 3-inch deck screws in each joint and checked to make sure that everything was square as I went along putting it together. And after I got both long sides of the frame built, then I put the end pieces on, same way as the other rails is put on with the glue and screws, 3-inch deck screws and Type Bond 3, pre-drill and send the screws in. I did end up going back and cutting a dado in the side of the center leg and added two stretchers across the inside of that, on the top and the bottom, and then I add another one across the top and the bottom, halfway between that and the end of the workbench. Should give it plenty of strength and keep any plywood from sagging. Now I have both pieces, the bottom and the top, cut to the exact same width. Now both the top and the bottom are cut to the size of the table and completely square to each other and the table frame. I've got my boards laid out for my hose, my access hose for clamps. These are the two side stretchers. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to show how I split the difference. I gotta mark the center point on these boards, the middle of them. And these right here are 5 and 11/16 wide. So in order to find the middle, the center of that board, here's how I do it. Like right here, I have my 2-inch mark lined up on this side of the board. And I've got my 10-inch mark lined up on this side of the board. So I got to go halfway in between that. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches in between. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, you're 6. That will be the center of your board right there. Now here I am all clamped up for a dry fit. There's no joinery to this, so everything has to be clamped in order to get it in place. If you haven't made you any of these corner clamps, corner jigs, those are very, very handy, especially for a large assembly like this. These pieces right here will all be cut to length, and they'll go from one side of these outside stretchers to the other. That's what I've got to do now, is cut them, and then we'll pocket hole and glue join all this together. All I like is letting the glue dry, move it into place, and fasten it to the bottom of the table, to the table frame. And that should do it. Looks pretty good. This is actually, I think, Ron Paulk design. Saw him build this, and also Jay Bates built one. The difference between mine and theirs is they built 2 sections to their top, and then they fastened those together. And this one I built all together. Well, I think that'll do it for this one. There's still a few things left to do. I'm going to take a round over bit and round over, soften these edges on the top and in those access holes in the side of it, and then give everything a good sanding. And then on the top of it, I'll put some type of a poly. I don't know if I'll use water base. Probably will just put a water base finish on it and call that one done. Well, I hope you enjoyed that build. I did. It felt good to have a few days in the shop just to get that completed, and I did need it. I needed that outfeed table for that table saw bad. In my old shop, I didn't have the room for it. I do in this one, and I built this one to be stationary. It was fashioned after Ron Paulk's design, but it's somewhat different. His was made in two sections that you put together. Jay Bates made one also that's Ron Paulk design. If you see let me find it right there, those access holes, mine are not as wide as theirs. I can't get as big objects in those holes as Ron Paulk's design, but that's fine with me. I don't want to put a lot of stuff in there anyway. I did make the table on the bottom of it, or the shelf on the bottom of it, to hold things such as my air compressor and things of that nature. And I can lay, as I'm clamping or unclamping something that I've glued up, I can lay them back in those holes, the clamps, as I put them on or take them off or whatever I need, or even lay a chisel inside there. It's not really big enough to be able to reach back to the middle of the table, but that's fine with me. I just wanted something that would temporarily hold something. Need to lay a hammer in it, I'll leave the handle sticking out to where I can get back a hold of it. Those are like, I think 2 3/4 inches up and down from top to bottom. They're like 2 3/4 inches, which is plenty big enough for me. But the overall table height is 1/4 inch lower than my table saw. But anyway, appreciate you joining. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like on it. And as always, thanks for watching.